What's up, Chooms? Let's talk cinematic gameplay experiences because I just finished up Baldur's Gate 3, which has some really good mocap and some really good talent behind the acting, doing all of their own mocap and voice acting. They weren't just actors in a booth. And obviously, what Baldur's Gate 3 did was, a step up for Larian, but I'm also simultaneously playing Starfield and Cyberpunk 2077. And Starfield, by comparison, across these three games, looks very clunky with the old school kind of approach that Bethesda has taken. As good as the world looks, as good as the ships are, and the worlds and the environments and everything else, the character models and the lips and all the facial stuff in Starfield pale in comparison to what Cyberpunk 2077 did with the Phantom Liberty expansion. Now, what I really want to talk here is about just cinematic gaming as a whole, because we've seen some amazing stuff in recent years. I would point to the two most recent God of War games as sort of being pinnacles of what can be achieved when you have a studio who really focuses on the full motion capture experience, regardless of whether or not the final version of the characters on screen look like the actors or not. Being able to be in that motion capture experience and to be able to put forth a cinematic experience in that way is, in my mind, sort of the future of games, and it's always been sort of the future of the next. We're always pushing the boundary of what we can create next. But kind of what I really want to talk about is the Phantom Liberty experience, because what CD Projekt Red did with the 2.0 update is pretty amazing, and what they did with the base game was already amazing with all the stuff that Keanu Reeves did for the character of Johnny Silverhand, but also all the other characters like Judy and Pan Am and everything else. Um, it points to companies that are, you know, CD Projekt Red in particular, willing to invest the money in creating an experience that transcends just a video game, if that makes sense. I've got another video that I'm in the process of working on right now talking about how, there are games that transcend being a game and become an actual art form. And I would argue that a game like Cyberpunk 2077's Phantom Liberty DLC is exactly that. It's an art form. So is Baldur's Gate 3 to a degree, because of all of the time that was spent at creating a cinematic experience above and beyond just the mechanics of combat and everything else. Now, I can also look back and say, outside of like the God of War games, Jedi Survivor, I think I said when I finished Jedi Fallen Order, I believe the review that I gave of that game when it came out, I said, this is the best Star Wars movies I've seen. Not plural, sorry, the best Star Wars movie I have seen in 20 years. Because if you break down Jedi Fallen Order into the cutscenes and the story that you actually play, especially that ending, which I'm totally gonna, if you haven't played it by now, it's years and it's been out for years. The Darth Vader ending in Jedi Fallen Order was just absolutely, ball tingling. It hits you, man. It was really, really, really good. But let's talk more about Phantom Liberty in particular, because I know that's what we kind of are supposed to be talking about, and I'm rambling about all sorts of other stuff, which is what I usually do. So, the opening segments of Phantom Liberty, I would say the first few hours of gameplay, especially leading up to dealing with the Chimera, um, quite possibly that might be in my top three intros of all time to any video game or DLC I've ever played. Like, they just throw you in the mix immediately, and it's just bam, bam, jab, jab, uppercut, and they just don't stop. But as good as all of the talent is, Idris Elba, coming in and doing what he did with his character in Phantom Liberty, um, and also just, I know that Johnny Silverhand, I know that Keanu's character isn't a main character in the Phantom Liberties DLC's main storyline, but if you play through all the side gigs and side missions that are part of Phantom Liberty, he is actually a major component in almost all of those missions because he's there for pretty much all of them, constantly giving commentary and being super snarky and just a lot of fun. But Idris Elba is what I really want to talk about here because this is where we get into he's an actor like Keanu who has a career in Hollywood and he has been doing stuff for many, many years. He's worked his way up. I remember there was a talk show, might have been the one with Graham Norton, when they went and looked back at one of his earliest roles where he was like a pizza delivery guy in this like movie or something, and they actually dubbed over his voice because they didn't like the way his voice sounded. But you can look back to when these guys were getting early parts, and it was like 2 seconds of on-screen time, just enough to get like their actual, card so that they could be a guild member, but then working their way up. And he has done some pretty amazing roles over the years. But I feel like what he did with Phantom Liberty showcases his talent as an actor. And this is on top of what Keanu Reeves already did in the base game with Johnny Silverhand. But the idea of a spy character who, depending on how you play the game, the ending that I got, I won't spoil it here, the ending I got was very different from the ending that all the other people I know who have played the game in my personal ring have gotten. It was an ending that was unique to my experience. And I feel like everything I saw Idris putting onto the screen was pretty amazing for, a DLC that was mostly focused on spycraft and him being willing to go in there and do all the mocap and everything else. We've already talked about Keanu in other videos, which is why I'm focusing mostly on this one. Well, I'm focusing on Idris in this one. Quick commercial break, everyone, to give a shout out to our first official guild officer, Bubalonia, as well as all of the guild champions, and of course, all of the members who help keep me on the air full time. To join as a member, simply click that join button below and pick your tier, but you can also support with super chats on any live stream or premiere, or super thanks on any upload or YouTube short. Don't forget the Discord. Let's get back to the video. I guess what I really want to say is when I was playing Phantom Liberty, it's short enough that it doesn't feel like a massive game, although it can, you can get 30-ish hours out of all the stuff, maybe more if you're really going completionist that's there in Phantom Liberty. But in terms of main storyline, I think I would have to go back and look. I think I did 15 hours or so that was just main storyline with Idris Elba's character. But what I really want to focus on is what CD Projekt Red did with creating a cinematic experience that felt like I was watching a miniseries play out, like I was actually watching a show on television while also participating in sort of a choose your own adventure thing. Because if you strip out all the combat and everything else and you're choosing all the dialogues and the conversations and everything else, it's a very good story and it's a very good movie to watch. And the way it's, especially if you're playing, I played it on the Xbox Series X with ray tracing turned on, and it looks absolutely phenomenal. I know people who have high-end PCs have an even better experience in terms of seeing something that, I mean, what you see here, the way these characters look in this screenshot, is how they look in the game. And it's pretty phenomenal what they've done with the lighting and everything else and the technology that has been used to create these cinematic experiences. And if this is the future of gaming, I'm all for it. As much as I love what they did with Baldur's Gate 3, which is way better than what they did with Starfield, um, Baldur's Gate 3, as much as like Starfield pales in comparison to Baldur's Gate 3, Baldur's Gate 3 pales in comparison to what CD Projekt Red did with the technology that they have in place and what they're doing here with their projects. And now that they've moved over to Unreal 5, especially with all of the AI stuff that Unreal 5 has within it and that they're building into it with the facial reconstruction and everything else, I think the next version of Cyberpunk that we see is going to blow our minds in terms of what that visual experience is like. And I would also look to, games like, say, the next God of War, whatever they do there, because, they've already proven with their studio, that's Santa Monica, right? That they have been willing to spend millions of dollars to get an end result on screen that is just absolutely amazing. As much as I like the God of War experience from the 2018 game, Ragnarok was something else entirely. And all of the characters, if you watch through, I did a full playlist of that when it came out. I think it was last Christmas. I wept like six different, eight different times during that playthrough just because of the emotional experiences I was having, from sadness to pure joy to just excitement. It was really, it pulled me in a way that many other games have not. And Red Dead Redemption 2, I would argue that even though the game is starting to look a little bit dated these days, unless you're using mods, the way they did all the mocap for that game and everything else is very, 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 for the time, it was technologically just mind blowing. And whatever they do next with their upcoming games, I have no doubt that those are going to be cinematic experiences that draw you in as well. So I think walking away from the last, 3, 4 months that I've been playing all of these amazing games, as much fun as I had with Baldur's Gate 3 and as much of a storytelling masterpiece that game was, I think Cyberpunk 2077's Phantom Liberty takes the cake for me for the most cinematic thing I've played this year, in terms of just sheer beauty on screen and the talent of the actors bringing to the table motion capture and the technology to get their characters looking exactly like the actors in real life, and also blending in elements of like Idris Elba doing music and having his actual DJ tracks in the game, and Keanu Reeves actually having his motorcycles in the game and his company in the game. We're starting to see a blending of sort of offline and online components where the actors are bringing their own personal stuff to the table, and that's getting integrated into these games. And I think that other companies, as they look at the redemption arc of Cyberpunk and what they did with Phantom Liberty, they're going to be taking notes and looking at that as the future of what games can be as we move closer and closer to true virtual reality experiences. I'm on board for all of it. I had a great time with Phantom Liberty. I'm still in the middle of my Netrunner playthrough, which is probably going to take me the rest of November because I got to finish up. I'm finishing up Starfield right now, and then I'm switching over and only streaming the Netrunner as I wrap this up. But I'm very pleased with the Phantom Liberty expansion overall and what they did to turn this game around and make it into something that is absolutely just compelling from a visual storytelling standpoint. And it really makes me feel like I'm watching a masterpiece on the big screen, even though it's here, at home in my office playing a video game. I can't wait for more like this. I don't care what company. I love immersive worlds that I can feel like I'm living in, as opposed to video games that I'm just playing. As much as World of Warcraft might be fun, Lord of the Rings Online, Star Wars: The Republic, those have always only ever felt like video games. Like I feel like I'm a character in a video game, whereas here I feel like I'm actually V, and I'm actually experiencing a storyline with Keanu Reeves and Idris Elba and Judy and Pan Am and everybody else. Just truly breathtaking. Love to hear your thoughts. I know this is kind of a rambling video, but I needed to get this off my chest. Hopefully you liked. And if you did, like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you never miss an update. Join as a member if you want to get access to the member videos and to support the channel. And don't forget to check out the Discord. Links are down below. I'll see everybody in the next one. Stay safe out there, chooms.